Hello and welcome to the 46th episode of When I Was Your Age, a podcast celebrating the careers, callings, and creativity of some friends of mine. I'm your host, Roland Parker, and as always, it's a joy, a pleasure, and a treat to have you here. Today's guest is Lea Mulligan, who's going to be talking about running ultra marathons, huge long distance tracks. I know her from Maryville College. I'm really excited to catch up with her and see what she's been into. Before we bring Lea into the stream, I do have a little bit of housekeeping. As always, make sure that you follow the Instagram at WIWYA pod. Thank you guys so much for the support. At the time of recording, we are at 1,556 followers, which means the world. I really appreciate it. If you are here for the first time, maybe you came in because you're a part of Lea's world, give us a follow. See if you know some more folks that end up on the pod. We really appreciate it. But you can do that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. And if you're more in the visual game, you can also watch episodes on Spotify and in YouTube. So the links to all those places are on the link tree in the Instagram bio. And I think that's going to wrap it for our housekeeping. So we'll go ahead and bring Lea into the stream. Lea, how's it going with you? What you been doing?
Oh, great. I've been hanging out at home with this super cold weather the last 2 weeks. It's been lovely having some quality couch time.
Oh my gosh, I know. I was actually I was gearing up to start running a little bit more. I was excited to kind of get into it a bit more this year, and it feels like the first couple weeks of this year have really made it hard to get out there and be disciplined, just with how cold it's been. But yeah, I'm excited to get a break with that and start up again.
Definitely. You kind of got to lean into the Eskimo vibes. I had a buff up to my nose today and had just my eyes peeking out to survive. So
yeah, absolutely. If it goes on much longer, I'm gonna have to break out the neck gaiter and the ski gloves and all of that. Anything special that you've been doing kind of at home recovering while you're having this cold weather?
Yeah, so I actually have a blog on my coaching website that I've been trying to do, and I'm working 2 jobs right now. I'm teaching and coaching, and I haven't had a ton of time for working on my blog. So I've got some backlogs writing that I've been working on. Has been pretty fun to curl up with a cup of tea and write.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, we'll have to make sure that we plug that in the show notes so that people can find that super easily if they end up here. Yeah, amazing. That's great. Cool. Well, let's get into some get to know you questions. I would say at this point, if you're not already, make sure that you follow Lea on Instagram so you can stay in tune with all of her adventures and running and crazy miles that she's putting up. I would say maybe follow her on Strava too. We can see about linking that. If you wanna feel kind of tough about yourself, I need to get out there. But yeah, that's amazing. Have you ever had kind of a weird handle or username early on in middle school and high school?
Ooh, I've got Pink Rosette.
Pink
Was
Rosette.
my
Okay.
Webkins username that in 7th grade I decided to also make my Snapchat username, which regretfully later in life it's still Pink Rosette, and that's a little tragic, but that's okay.
That's good. It's funny to have seen folks kind of shifting. I think a lot of people our age that Instagram handles, there's a little bit more of a professionalism about it. It's very first name last name. I do see a couple folks holding out to the usernames that they've had for a while, but the ones that always stick with you are the Webkins usernames. They'll come back to haunt you.
It's the good old days. Working with 2nd graders now that haven't heard of Webkins, I'm like, come on.
Oh, dude,
the glory days.
that was absolutely the life. I specifically remember growing up with my cousin and my brother, being at my cousin's house, and we would all taking turns logging in to go to the curio shop and stuff. It's just such a unique time. Very in that realm of Club Penguin and all of those kinds of.
That's what I was about to say. What's the penguin one? Club Penguin. There we
go.
Oh
yeah, that was such a good one. Love it. Well, I've got some get to know you questions. We like to ask these to everybody, just kind of get a general picture of who you are and what you're about.
Yeah.
So where are you from and where do you currently live?
Yeah, so I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I am still here. So
Amazing.
I have a little tripped out minivan that I travel in during the summers. So I kind of live out west for like 2 or 3 months of the year in my van, and then I'm homebound for the rest of the year.
Amazing. The hashtag van life.
Oh
That's
yeah.
killer. What do you do? We'll get into this a little bit later in the podcast, but tell us what you do.
Yeah, so I've been teaching for the last 5 years and
Amazing.
have been transitioning over the last 2 years into doing some coaching, and then am transitioning more now into doing full-time coaching starting in May.
Wow.
Fingers crossed on that. So this is
Love it.
maybe my last semester teaching. It's kind of a cool little chapter.
That's awesome. How old are you? Big theme of the podcast for us is age and kind of accomplishing things at a young age, and being around people that are in similar stages of life as you and doing difficult things. So, how old are you?
I am 25.
Excellent. Sorry. Well, long-winded way to ask, but there we arrived. What piece of media are you currently enjoying? So, book, podcast, music, TV show. What are you kind of diving into as of late?
Ooh, I like podcasts a good bit for driving to work. I have about a 30-minute commute to work, so I listen to way too many running podcasts. And then my poor husband, I've somehow gotten him hooked on Grey's Anatomy. So we're on
Ah,
season 17 of Grey's Anatomy. He's somehow
whoa.
stuck through all of it with me. So
There you go.
we were in Seattle this summer, and I was like, we should watch Grey's.
There you go. Now, are you like a lifetime follower of Grey's? Like, have you been watching from the beginning?
It was my COVID show. So
Ah,
I binged all of it like the first 2 months of COVID. So this is
nice.
a rewatch for me.
Excellent. My wife and I are big on like The Circle, The Ultimatum, Love Is Blind, like that kind of realm. That's very much where we reside for the shows that we watch together.
I've seen Love
And
Is Blind. It's a good one.
yeah, yeah, it's I wouldn't describe it as good, but I do.
Oh,
It is good. It is good to watch.
yes, there you go.
That's for sure. Um, Excellent. Yeah, Grey's Anatomy, solid answer. What's something you'd consider a luxurious necessity? For me, that kind of blurs the lines between a need and a want. Maybe something that's integrated into your routine or habits. Something that just kind of makes your life easier. You wouldn't want to give it up.
Hot tub.
Hot tub. Oh wow. Okay, tell me about that.
After cold runs these days, I pretty much will finish running, get home, and immediately hop in the hot tub.
Oh
So a nice, like, immediate thawing. And then for running, I've done some heat training in it as well, where that helps for like adapting to when it gets back to being super hot and humid here. You can like sit for 30 minutes in the hot tub and it helps you out later on.
yeah, amazing. Do you also do the inverse with like the cold exposure too, or is it mainly just the hot kind of stuff?
Predominantly the hot.
Okay,
Big baby in the
excellent.
cold.
Yeah, I'll take a cold shower every now and again, but I've definitely not gone into the world of the cold plunges and stuff like that. That seems a little intense. Um, Excellent. Do you have any bits that you're doing? So I kind of think of like a running joke. Maybe it's with your spouse or friends at work or just to yourself even. But any kind of bits that you find yourself doing over and over.
Um, Not really a joke. I have lots of weird noises with my dog. I feel like we have full on conversations where my husband has taught her to speak, and we can like both make pitches at her that she'll like match as we're going. So we'll be like cracking up, cooking dinner, having full-fledged conversations with our dog.
Amazing. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Any what do you feel like your dog's trying to let you know about, like trying to relate to you?
Um, she's real needy, so I think she's just saying, "Don't leave me again." She's not really food oriented. She's more company oriented. So she's
Okay.
like asking for a hug or asking for us to like follow her around the house.
Wow. Love it. Gotcha. So she's just trying to make sure that you guys hang out like you've been doing for
Yeah,
for this
she's
cold
like,
weather.
I'm here. You're here too. You need to stay here.
Yeah, so she's like, "This is good. See? We don't need to change any of this." That's amazing. All right. This next question I love getting to ask because I like getting to compile the answer, and we can see that in the national anthem playlist that we have linked in the link tree. So you can go and find it and see Leah's answer along with everybody else's answer so far. So Leah, if you were to replace the national anthem with any song on your playlist, anything in your Spotify or Apple Music or or CDs, what have you. What song would that be? And tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, that's hard.
Do you want to hear some examples?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so what and oh, this is gonna drive me nuts. But there was one Maryville College professor when I asked him this. He said, "This land is your land" by Woody Guthrie, and that was a really solid answer. I feel like it was very true to the prompt. But I've also gotten funnier answers as well. Just "My Humps" by the Black Eyed Peas. I've gotten "Super Bass" by Nicki Minaj. So yeah, it's really any direction that you want to take it. It could be a commentary on the political state of our country, or it could just be like, I just dig this song, and I think it'd be funny to hear it playing before a football game or a baseball game, and standing up to hear that in front of a crowd of people.
I've been listening to a lot of Camp recently, so I feel like something by Camp.
Oh, okay. Any song in particular by Camp?
By and By I've been listening to a lot recently, which is a lot of just like thinking about being a life force and like going through life and the stages passing by and kind of the way that you go through it all, where I feel like it could apply to a lot of different things.
Amazing. Well, if you want to hear By and by Camp and other answers, then you can go to the link tree and you can find the National Anthem playlist. There, there is the title of it. It's WIWYA colon rah, and then there's like an American flag and a bald eagle on there, so you can go listen to it. The playlist is getting bigger all the time as new episodes coming out. So excellent. And last question before we kind of get into your story is, how do we know each other?
So we were both Mountain Challenge. Are we going with fellows or scholars? We were like in the changing time period there.
Oh gosh, I always knew it to be fellow. I'm not sure that I was really a part of the changing of the guard with scholars. So you tell me what you need it to be, and I'll adhere to it.
Yeah, so I think it's now Mountain Challenge Scholar, but we were Mountain Challenge Fellows, where Roland was kind of a mentor as the year above me with Mountain Challenge and kind of showing me, I want to say showing you the ropes, but that's kind of cringy. But showing me all the processes of Mountain Challenge and really being kind of part of my welcoming committee at Maryville College was one of the first people I met, and went on a whole bunch of paddling and hiking and climbing trips throughout the years.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of hard to think about my time at Maryville College without, bringing up all of the experiences with Mountain Challenge. Is, integral part of being there. So one thing that's kind of easy to forget is that that each class had, the one person who was going through the same kind of programming and whatnot, and there was someone who was always familiar with it, and shared that experience. That was a cool thing. But yeah, amazing. Well,
Bruce, quick tangent.
I saw him. I was on campus. I didn't see him at homecoming, but there was some reason that I was hanging around campus. I think maybe the day before homecoming, we were meeting up with Jackie. Just catching up with her. And he was sitting on the porch hanging out, and we went and chatted with him for a bit. And then I saw Tyson the next day at the tower for homecoming. But as far as like phone calls or anything, not necessarily. Probably about once a year if I'm, riding through campus, then I'll go swing over and see if they're over there. But that's about the extent of it.
That's nice.
What about you?
Probably about the same, maybe twice a year on the porch. I tried to get him to come to my wedding, but he said he didn't do socializing and would just give me a hug on the porch. So I got a hug on the porch and he got to meet my husband, but
excellent.
No public shows.
That's perfect. I wouldn't want it to be any other way. Excellent. Well, let's dive into your story a bit. There's quite a few things that I want to touch on, but I think the big thing that I want to start with is, how did you first start running? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I've pretty much been running my entire life. I actually was grabbing lunch with my mom the other day, and she was talking about a sprint triathlon I did when I was 8, where she told me that she would sign me up for it if I could run across the entire walking bridge in downtown Chattanooga. So I trained like going out little increments across the walking bridge and back for like every afternoon when I was 8 years old with her until I could make it across the bridge, and was always just weirdly self-motivated and like always saw my mom as a runner and really wanted to be like her. So I feel like those initial years, I was just like, I want to be like my mom.
That's amazing. No, I did cheat a little bit because I listened to the podcast episode with you on dirt and vert, or maybe it's the other way around. But I remembered you talking about your mom and just like how influential that was. Do you think that you would be in this space now if your mom hadn't pursued marathons and running in the way that she did, if you hadn't seen her, like especially when you were young?
That's an excellent question, and no one has ever asked me that. I'd like to think so because of how much it shaped my life, but I don't think I would have gotten into it at such a young age. Like, it was super strange that I was doing long trail races at the age that I was, especially in high school. I did my first ultra marathon when I was a senior in high school, and I always felt kind of lonely in that, where I didn't have peers my age participating in the same thing. And now that I'm 25, like I have an awesome friend group that's doing all of this stuff. And I hope that I would have found my way to like this amazing group of people eventually, even without that start and inspiration from my mom.
Wow, that's great. I had kind of suspected that you would have arrived at this point maybe by a different means, a different journey, and that was what really why I wanted to ask. But that's so cool. Um, and you said you're from Chattanooga and you live there currently, except for when you're traveling in the van. Um, but that seems like that's a big running and outdoor culture. How did that impact your running journey?
Yeah, so I think it made me really excited about trail running as opposed to running on roads or even cross country as much, where I got really involved with the trail community here super young and swept a lot of races or volunteered and picked up flags when I was younger. So I got to know like the head of the race communities and people that do trail maintenance and stuff here, and was really excited to go to all of those events. And I think accessibility was always super easy for me. And I got super comfortable where if I had a bad day in high school, I would go up to Lookout Mountain and spend time on the trails. And that became like an outlet for stress relief as well, because it was so easy for me to get to the places that were so beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, and it's one of my friends that I had on the podcast kind of early on was is Bennett Smith. He lives in Chattanooga now, and he's a professional kayak, like tricking, like especially like freestyle and stuff like that. But one of the things that he mentioned was just like being in this community and like this area, like it's so easy to just go. Like there's so many different places that you can get to and that sort of stuff. So you started running young. Tell me about like maybe if we could give a breakdown of the timeline of start running for the first time. You mentioned the sprint triathlon when you were like 8, to up to now. It's a stop off where you need to, but like what did that look like?
Yeah, so I then, after that sprint triathlon, I wanted to run elementary school cross country. So my mom just independently signed me up for a bunch of races. And then starting in middle school, I ran cross country all the way through my junior year of high school. And around sophomore, junior year, I really started getting into trail running, especially as bonding time with my mom. And 2 weeks into my senior cross country season, I was like, man, this isn't working for me. Like, I'm having a ton of race anxiety. My coach and I don't really have much time in sync. So I ended up quitting and did my first 50K my senior year of high school. So that was a big focus. And it was actually, the 50K was the same day as our state cross country meet. So that was kind of a like huge step away, giving it to cross country moment for me, where I was like, yep, I'm doing this instead. And I was never going to run cross country again. Like, I had a weird mental headspace about the sport. Like, I was going to wander in the woods and not care about racing competitively anymore. And I think I made it 3 weeks. on Maryville College's campus before Tyson convinced me to run cross country, where it doesn't really help when your boss is also the cross country coach and sees you running from meetings and is like, hey, nudge, nudge, like you need to come do this sport. So the Maryville cross country community was much more supportive and a lot less, I guess, pitting you against others on the team than my high school experience. And I actually really, really loved all of those years of cross country, where mountain challenge and cross country really made my entire college experience what it was. And then Tyson was awesome and let me still race long trail stuff in the spring. So I had a cross country season in the fall, and then I raced ultras in the spring. And then after college, I kind of went all in on ultra running, and I've had a coach for the last 5 years that's located in Boulder, Colorado. And he has coached me virtually and has really kind of guided my journey to where I am now with running.
Wow, that's amazing. It's such a cool thing to see too, that given your tumultuous relationship with cross country as a sport, like it very easily just could have been the end of running for you. That at one point, when I was done with cross country in high school, also I was like, yeah, that's it. I'll probably never run again, except for to like stay in shape. Basically, like I have no desire to like try this out again. And yeah, it's like I think there's something to be said that you're like, yeah, no, like I want to lean into this aspect of running that I actually do really enjoy and is kind of integral into what I love. That's a cool thing, and I really admire that. Wow. I'm trying to plan out my next question here. So given that, is that obviously cross country in high school and college, that's a very different experience from the distances, to say the least, and terrain and everything like that for these races that you're running now. What kind of initially pulled you into doing some of these longer distances and like the huge elevation gains? What was that? What was the draw there?
I think a lot of it is just my draw to the outdoors in general, where especially in these longer races, you get to see more beautiful expanses as you go. And then somewhere along the way, that line got blurred of really wanting to know what my failure point is in this sport, where it's picking more difficult races at altitude and longer races and hillier races, and wondering what that line is, where I'm going to find a race that I can't finish, and I'm going to find a speed that I totally blow up in a race. And it's like finding out all of my challenge points. And you learn so many life lessons, where my first 50K, I learned a lot about myself. And my first 100 miler, I learned a lot more about myself. And then it's like almost an addictive process of its fine tuning of like, okay, what new adventure can I find to learn more, and to learn more now about the sport and the science of it all, combined with learning more about myself and my community.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing to, I think it's always really cool to see someone who cares so deeply about their passion, and watching them, get excited about it and sharing about it. So, okay, you said 100 miler, which is just like so insane to me, because for me, the longest time of my life, I was like, okay, there's a marathon, there's an Ironman, like what? Anybody else that's going for distances longer than that, we're just showing off. There's not we're like, what are we doing here? What are we really proving? But tell me, like, how do you prepare for something like that?
Yeah, so I'll stand by unless you're trying to race 100 miles super fast. Like a 5K to me is still almost as intimidating, where it's like so many different pieces going in, where standing on the start line of a 5K, you're immediately running fast. Whereas a 100 miler, you at least have to pace it to a degree. And there's so much more time you get to eat snacks. There's a ton of science coming out about eating like a ridiculously large amount of calories and carbs and specifics each 30-minute block in a 100-mile race, where it's kind of a puzzle, where you get to train and figure out the whole building up process for it, where it's months in advance that you have to put in work. And you can make an Excel sheet and gather a team where you have a crew and pacers that are going to be at different points to help you. And it's kind of a community and family feeling effort as opposed to just going out on a run by yourself. Where as opposed to it just being a run, it's like a huge adventure involving all of your closest friends.
Wow, that's I like the way that you put that about having a team. In some ways, it almost feels closer to Formula One, like racing with like cars than it does like to I don't know, like running 100 meters because like you have these different like crew members. You're preparing in all of these different ways. You're planning it out in a I don't know, you're delving into the science a little more deeply and planning your nutrition and stuff like that. Um, yeah, it's just it's so interesting to think about. Um, so tell me about your first your first 50K. Is it you're 17 years old? What was it like? Were you going for a certain time? Were you going to just finish? How did you feel? Did you throw up? Did you? It's like to tell me about it.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I went into it with just the mindset of finishing it, and I didn't own a watch at that point. I didn't get a watch till my sophomore year in college. Did not thrill my coach, but I went out training, had no idea how many miles I did training for that 50K, and I had on like old fashioned like long headphones that connected to my phone, like flapping along as I was running it. And I ate a bunch of candy. The markers for that race were stuffed animals that you followed. And it was just a big loop course where it was kind of just like a fun celebratory time in the woods of moving this distance where I think like 24 miles, I was about ready to be done. And it got less fun where that was kind of like a hike,
Yeah.
shuffle, rough time sort of hang. But most of it was a really positive, just like get through it first experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's something that as I've looked into like some of these longer distances now and seen people sharing their training experiences, the candy element seems really attractive to me. I'm seeing a lot of people who are, they're foregoing the goose or and they're eating like Nerds gummy clusters instead. And I'm like, all right, hey, I could be on board with that. That seems pretty sick. So I love to see that. Tell me about like equipment that you're using on like obviously shoes and like watch like that. Those seem like the biggest things there. But tell me about the equipment that you're using for training purposes for race day. What all are you employing to like help you be successful?
Yeah, so I have a Solomon is one of the greatest running brand for packs, where I have a pack that'll hold two soft flask water bottles for me that I could bring out on my runs. Where any run that's over like an hour and a half for me, I'll bring the pack. And then I also have a quiver, which can hold poles, which is really fun. So it's like hiking poles, but they're lighter for running that you can fold down and put in this quiver. That's kind of fun. You feel like Robin Hood. You can like whip out your poles
Oh,
when you're
nice.
going uphill, and then you can put them back in your quiver when you're going downhill, and kind of have a system for carrying those. So those would be my main pieces for longer distances, and then headlamp as well, where a lot of these races start at kind of odd hours, where some longer races will even start at like 6 p.m. and go through the night to start, and then go through the next day as well, where you need a really dependable headlamp that can last for like 10 hours.
Oh, wow. Have you ever had like an equipment failure where you had to kind of like blowing a tire essentially, where you had to like, I got to change out the batteries on my headlamp before I can keep going?
Luckily, not in a race. I definitely have on some training runs. I'm exceptionally talented at getting lost. Not in any bad ways, but I've had several runs that have gone longer than planned because I got turned around and have used a phone flashlight or been like, well, guess we're just going really slowly and navigating without light.
Amazing. And so you met your husband kind of in this world, right? And one of the things that you mentioned on Dirt and Vert is that you guys train differently. What do you mean by that? Is something that I wanted to know about a little bit more.
Yeah, so he is very structured with his training, where he's very mathematical with it all and enjoys having like exact splits, which are like the paces to a degree for workouts. And he enjoys, like, he makes intense spreadsheets for the races that he's going to be doing. And I, especially as I've gotten into coaching, have gotten a bit more dialed in and over years of being trained. But I like to run by feel a lot, where I base all of my running on like, okay, I'm running easy today, and I'll just go trot along and don't like to look at my watch as often. And instead of in races going for a specific pace, I'm going for effort, because I really just want to be out there enjoying the experience and being in the moment, as opposed to being stuck to my watch, where I think both ways can be beneficial. And each runner is very, very different in the way that they approach the sport. And it's really fun for me being able to bounce ideas off of him, where he's taught me a lot about discipline, where I think I lean more towards just wandering aimlessly in the woods is where my heart is, but I'm also more competitive than I'd like to be. So I've learned some lessons through him about how to like dial in that competitiveness to be a bit more structured.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you kind of rubbed off on him in the way you kind of convinced him to be a little more intuitive with training or racing?
Yeah, I think to a degree, and also just to relax on adventure runs, where a lot of our vacations now are like picking beautiful places to go explore. And when we first started dating, he didn't even like to stop for like a selfie, where I love pictures. So now he's dialed in of like, oh, it's a pretty spot. Like, okay, we're going to pause for 5 minutes. That's fine. We're going to enjoy the selfie later.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that I love about marriage is the way that people kind of grow into each other. They're kind of like something that you wouldn't have considered before, but it's like, oh, it's important to my partner, so now we're gonna. I'm better at closing the cabinets than I was when when I first got married.
I don't
But
know.
and
That's a universal guy thing. It's so
yeah, yeah,
fun.
I'm significantly better than I was. I've had no mistakes this year. How about that? So
Awesome.
it's always improving, always getting better. Um, so let's kind of shift gears, talk about coaching, because this is a world that you're kind of delving into. How long have you been pursuing coaching, like working with clients or athletes of what I don't know how best to describe it, but how long have you been doing that, and tell me more.
In an official capacity, around 2 years, but was helping out some friends before that. And recently have done some more specific trainings, and then have gotten a lot of mentoring from my coach, who he has a huge athlete field that he coaches, and has been super helpful in kind of teaching me his training philosophy and really supporting me in coaching a way that feels right to me, where there's so much knowledge about running. People have been running for ages, and you kind of have to pick a philosophy that resonates with you as a coach and then stick with that direction. So I'm someone who has learned that high mileage does not resonate with me for athletes, where I'm big on the mentality of finding joy in the process, and that you can build speed and that you can build miles without burning yourself out on this sport. And I've learned to really encourage people to find the way to train that makes themselves the happiest. And it's been really fun being able to kind of have people light up more in this sport, where maybe they're just entering it or trying to do their first ultra, and I kind of want to help them fall in love with it even more.
Yeah, I can really appreciate that, because I think for me, that was a big part of why I got burnt out in just like high school cross country, was that like I felt like I had to, perform like a certain amount or get this percentage faster, and I just like wasn't having a lot of fun, and like I felt guilty about like not improving as fast as I wanted to, or like not wanting to train like in the summer and stuff. And so like having that joy kind of component of pursuing it for the sake of pursuing it, I think that's something that could have made a big difference for me and like maybe my relationship with running now. So what kind of factors are you looking at when you're coaching somebody? Like, what are the things that you're looking at and the variables and levers that you're pulling?
Yeah, so initially in a conversation with an athlete, I want to find out like specifically what races they have for the year and why they've chosen those races, where especially people looking at ultras, I'm curious why they've chosen that specific event where there's so many different races around the country with so many different environments where there's backyard ultras where sometimes people are trying to hit a new distance by just going by time in a circle. And sometimes people want to see incredible views in the mountains. So that kind of helps shape my training to start out if they're just trying to work on like building elevation gain skills, and if they're working on their mental game for just going in circles for hours. That kind of starts the trajectory. And then I really want to make sure that training fits in someone's life, where talking about that burnout and that guilt with running, like I want to have training plans for my athletes that are super flexible, where if they have a family trip coming up where they can shift around the days of their training and not to feel guilty about it and like it's taking away from their lives, where I want to find the way to seamlessly integrate running as much as possible, where there has to be a little bit of sacrifices made to fit in training for a huge event like an ultra marathon, but there's also a way to make it where it fits well with your life. And Mike and I in our coaching use the term the puzzle pieces of life very often, where I really want to learn about their puzzle pieces and how to fit those all together, whether it's nutrition and if they're wanting to learn about dialing in how to eat better on runs and to recover faster by eating better, that's one piece. Or finding out if they can up their mileage quickly and if that's going to cause them to get hurt or hinder them or make them too fatigued. Or if they can do this big adventure before their other big adventure, if that's going to get in the way, where it's just figuring out what each person is looking for in a coach and then how to direct that towards the day-to-day process, where a lot of these things can be glorified with the one big event, but it's kind of just a lot of stepping stones in the process of getting there.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really refreshing to hear you speak in this way about training and pursuing these long-term goals, like especially with the flexibility and moving things around, because I think so much of like, whether it's bodybuilding or running or even just like pursuing a career, so much of the mantra and what people like just always, especially, I don't know, it's very like grind set, like you got to adhere to this program, you got to commit to it, you got to make your sacrifices, like so you got to make it a priority. And like, yes, you absolutely do need to do those things if you want to achieve your long-term goals, but like there's probably a way that you can do it without feeling guilty about every component, like especially if there's just other parts of your life that are taking over. People have kids, and stuff like that. That's really refreshing to hear.
Well, absolutely. I feel like guilt in general with running is something that's instilled, which has contributed me not wanting to do cross country anymore, where there's so many other pieces of life where I try to tell my athletes to like soak in. If you feel like you just really don't want to go on a run one day, like go and take a walk with your dog. And like, there's so many other avenues to moving your body that are going to bring you joy. And then you're going to feel more refreshed getting to the run later without feeling that pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. I think there's a lot of different ways that you could take that and apply it. Not just in the world of running or fitness, could be career or being a good parent or a good spouse. Like there's, just, I don't know, just something about that is really sitting with me super well. And I like that a lot. Well, tell me, is it similar realm? That's you're teaching, you mentioned that chapter might be coming to a close here soon, but tell me about teaching.
Yeah, so I didn't really initially envision myself teaching. I graduated during COVID and was just kind of grasping for a job of some sort. And I worked at a running store here in Chattanooga right out of college for a little bit. And then an outdoor school here was hiring. And I went and talked to them and used Mountain Challenge a whole lot in my interview, and ended up teaching there for a year and learned that I really don't like being cold, which it was an entirely outdoor-based school. So I kind of struggled during the winter, but I really enjoyed working with the kids. And from there, I ended up getting a gardening teaching position at St. Nicholas here in Chattanooga. and did that for a few years. And really enjoyed that process of teaching. I was a biology major originally and loved science and enjoyed teaching them about that. And then really missed having my own class. So kind of circled back around and have been teaching second grade this year. And really love my classroom of kids, but kind of figured out that it takes away from running a bit when I'm getting home, just like wrecked from teaching every single day, where it's so tiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could totally see that. My brother kind of also fell into teaching kind of post, because you graduated in 20, when did you graduate? 2021? Okay. Yeah, it's so he graduated kind of around that time also, and fell into teaching. Like, it was not what he set out to do originally. But similar kind of feelings of like, okay, I like this and I enjoy this, but like for long-term stuff, I've got to shift and find something new. But I'm sure that you've taken those things that you've learned about yourself to, and you're going to apply it to coaching and stuff like that. So what do you think that that teaching has given you that you're going to bring into the running world?
I think specifically conversation skills to a degree, where I'm really used to talking nonstop for 8.5 hours a day. And I am not someone that excels at phone calls. They're not my favorite, but a lot of my coaching right now is having 30 to 45-minute calls with athletes, where I think I've gotten a lot more comfortable, where if you can figure out things to say to a classroom full of 20 small children, you can figure out what to say to an adult on the phone, where that's just helped me be a lot more comfortable, I think, communicating in general. And then parent meetings as well, where sending emails and making sure that you're communicating stuff clearly has been really important in teaching, especially if there's been conflict or something like that, where the hardest part of teaching often is the parent conferences. And you get a lot of skills from that, of just delegating and getting stuff done on a specific timeline. And I think teaching's taught me to be very self-motivated, where you have to get your planning done kind of on your own timeline, and you have to get your own system in check, or you're going to have a really bad day at work. So it's kind of helped where now coaching is entirely on my own time frame. So I think I'm going to be really dialed in with having a schedule for myself with coaching, primarily because of teaching.
Yeah, that's cool. Was there anything that you brought from your running journey into the classroom that you, so did you have the kids running laps around the garden while they were getting their perennials ready? Or tell me about that.
I coached cross country for several years for the elementary school kids. So that was super fun. I think also the capacity to just get through hard moments, where one of the mantras that I use in really hard spots and races is it always gets better. And I think that translates really well to the teaching world as well, where if there's a kid screaming and crying and throwing a tantrum and it's a horrible moment, just tell myself it always gets better, where the next hour there's going to be a moment where a kid makes me a drawing and gives me a hug, where it's kind of that roller coaster system, where that spreads across life in general. And running has helped me a lot through a lot of low moments of being like, okay, you can get through this. Like, you've gotten through weirder, worse moments. It's okay.
Yeah, that's really great. I love that. And it's 100% true. I have not, I don't know that I've said those words exactly, but definitely echoed that sentiment when one of my girls is breaking down and I'm just trying to sit there. People often will tell you, like, especially at this age that they are currently, like, oh, you're gonna miss it. Like, these are like the good times. Like, you're gonna look back on this soon. It's really hard when they're like not getting out of the bath and I need them to, and like it's or just anything like that. So good. I think it's a good reminder from a perseverance standpoint.
Absolutely. And massive respect to you with parenting. It's awesome with two of them, where I think teaching, most of all, I'm hoping that translates to, I want to have kids, and I hope that translates over some of those skills to parenting as well.
Yeah, I think it 100% will, and you'll find it coming out in ways that just when you're there, it's a cool thing. Absolutely. Well, I don't want to do any disservice to you or your partner. I do feel that I glossed over your story a little bit, so let's go back. Tell me about meeting your husband and kind of connecting with running, because that's a really cool thing. Like I don't think that people often share 100% of the same interests as their partner, but you guys having this together, seeing you guys run off from your wedding and kind of going off into the woods in the sunset was a really cool thing to get to see. So tell me about first meeting and connecting and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I first met him at a Thanksgiving group run like 7 years ago now, like a while ago. I think that was my sophomore year in college, where him and just one other person showed up to this group run, and we kind of got to be friends through it, and we were like social media buddies off and on for years, where he was always like the cute runner guy that I thought about on occasion when I was single on Instagram. Where we didn't really interact much until he actually texted me in 2020 to see if I could pick him up from the airport. He was flying home from visiting his family in California right when COVID started. And I remember being like super bummed because I was trying to just be around my family and I couldn't pick him up. I was like, darn, I like really want to get to know this guy. So we, after that, connected on a few group runs. And then I found out he was doing a race in California that I was also signed up for. And my friends kind of cheered me on to asking him if he would have any interest in road tripping out there with me. So I like worked myself up and texted him and asked if he would want to go out there early with me, where he's a college track and cross country coach. So he's got summers off as well. And I had several other friends doing the race, but they couldn't go out as early. So I was like, man, I want to hang out with this guy. I want to go to California earlier. This could work out. And he said yes. And we road tripped out there and ended up spending a month and a half just like hanging out. We were buddies, like running in the mountains and spending time with friends. Super awkward at first. He's super quiet. So we like didn't talk half the drive to California. I'm like sitting in the passenger seats and I wasn't on my phone at all because I was like, well, this guy is driving me, which is super nice. So I like shouldn't be like scrolling while he's driving. So we're just like both sitting there silently in the car. It was good. But we were friends by the end of the summer and he asked me out once we got home, and kind of rest is history.
Nice. Love it. And that's such a cool, like, special thing for you guys to both be in that world of coaching, and you're running the same races. I feel like I heard that you often are placing like in the same position at these races. Is that true?
Yeah, it's fun. We both are kind of similarly competitive in the races, and it's fun if we can both podium. It's fun being like, this is my person, where I've had several races where I've been like chasing him, where he's definitely faster than me, but I'm working on being as close to him in races as I can be, where I'll go into like an aid station where people are passing out snacks and food. And I'm like, I'm chasing my husband. It's really fun.
That's awesome. And you guys have crewed for each other as well in kind of preparing for these races. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So he's paced me, like run in the last chunk of several races with me, and vice versa, where a race I did this past summer, I did 100K out in Colorado. And you were asking about throwing up earlier. That was the first race that I got sick in a race, and it was right after we got married. So he was like holding back my hair as I puked during this race. And I was like, well, if we were going to get the marriage check mark of him holding back my hair as I puked, at least it was in an interesting way.
There you go. Yeah.
So
wow. That's I love that. That's such a cool way to support each other. And that's I don't know. It's just exciting to see it. Not everybody shares something so closely like that, and it's cool that it's a part of your story, and that you get to keep going with each other in that way. That's amazing. Well, I feel that I have sufficiently run out of questions. I've used all the ones up that I had, but thankfully, we've prepared for this because we have a tradition of giving each guest the opportunity to ask a question to the next guest. And I'm excited to ask you this question because it comes from Kate Liggett, who was also in Mountain Challenge. So I'm excited to make that connection there. And it's a fun question too because I feel that it applies to you in a little bit different way because she asks if you were riding into battle, what creature would be your mount? And for me, I kind of picture you just running into battle because that's what we've been talking about this whole time. But if you had to pick something to ride into, the fields of war, what do you think that would be? And tell me about that.
I want to say some cool mythical creature, but I spent so much time as a kid watching like fantasy stories and stuff of them just riding like super cool like black stallions charging into battle with like a majestic, really long mane and like blowing in the wind. Where I'd really want a cool like mighty steed to charge into battle on with like a sword.
Nice.
Like
I think you could just
stuff.
pull out your trekking poles
Oh yeah,
from your quiver, just extendo like, and use that as your main digs. That's fun.
that
Nice.
feels
Well,
recycling the question. I feel like that's one of the almost. It's too close to a mountain challenge interview question. Y'all had
yeah,
some fun ones.
that's absolutely. It's one that very very much in the realm of that outdoor space group facilitator. I've used it before, and very yeah. I know that I've used it with like ropes course groups and stuff like that. Did you have one that you like to ask? For like if you were like trying to get to know a group and get them to step out of their shell.
Um, if it's older folks, I always liked asking a tattoo question. If you could have
Mm.
any tattoo, or if you have a tattoo, what's your favorite, or why would you have it?
Nice. I like that. That's excellent. Well, that could be your next question. It's a that for the guests to come, or we could go a different route. I don't want to pigeonhole you in if that's not what you're feeling.
No, that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if you were to get a tattoo right now, what would it be? Or if you have a tattoo, tell me
You had to
about
get
it.
a tattoo right this second. What would it be, and what would be your reasoning for choosing that tattoo?
Nice. Well, I'm excited to ask it for whoever comes next because that's also one that I like to ask and know. I remember there's a kid that I went to high school with, and he said this one time, and it's been so funny that it's always stuck with me. He said that he's going to get a tattoo of a grape so that when he's old and wrinkly, it turns into a raisin.
Oh my gosh.
It's just like, yeah. Shout out to Ben Connery. I doubt you're listening to this, but I don't remember exactly when he said it, but it's just like something that's always stuck with me. Sometimes like things like, I don't know, they're just like so funny that they stay with you forever. I've forgotten a million things from high school, but I know that Ben Connery would get a grape tattooed could turn into a raisin, and I know A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Those are the things that have stuck with me.
Man, A squared plus B squared equals C squared sticks. I don't know what that one that would have as well.
Yeah. Yeah. If we want to get a little more advanced, we could go quadratic formula. But I'm a little afraid to get it wrong. So I'll just say quadratic formula, and you can assume that I know it.
That's out of my realm. I'm
Yeah.
teaching 3-digit addition with regroupings hard sometimes.
Yeah. See, that's all we really need. How important is the quadratic formula when I'm calculating my mile splits? Like, let's be real.
I mean, if you don't remember it now, it must not be that important.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. All right. Well, Leah, do you have any parting thoughts before we shut down the show for this episode?
I think I'm good. Thank you for having me on. It's super cool. I'm excited to go back and listen to some previous episodes and see kind of insights of where some other people are that are connected in different ways through you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Let us know if one stands out. Love to hear it. If you have made it to this point in the episode, go to the Instagram post and give us a horse emoji on on the post. So you can add that in the comment section there just to let us know that you made it this far. We'd really appreciate it. But thank you guys for listening to episode 46 of When I Was Your Age. And we will catch you in the next one.
Thanks.